Introduction by Santoshan, also known as Stephen Wollaston. Glyn was internationally known and respected for having a deep passion for doing mediumistic work and teaching, and had great presence on stage, including a strong public voice with a rich tone that grabbed people's attention. Detailed and accurate evidence of human survival after death often seemed to flow effortlessly for him. People attended his courses and workshops just as much for his wisdom, charisma, and dynamic presence as a motivational speaker and extraordinary orator, as they did for his reputation as an outstanding medium. He sometimes ran development courses and spiritual retreats at the Arthur Findlay College in Essex that did not include mediumship at all, but other paths and practices that focused on Eastern and Western spirituality, and were just as popular as the ones he ran on mediumistic unfoldment. He remains one of very few people, apart from megastars, royalty, and leaders of countries and world religions, that I have seen sparking a spontaneous and rapturous standing ovation from an audience of around 50 people, just for walking into a packed small hall before saying or doing anything. It occurred at the start of an evening's demonstration of mediumship with Glyn at the Seekers Trust in Kent in 2011. There was a young German student that both Glyn and I knew in the audience, who turned to me with a beaming smile on her face after observing the enthusiastic welcome. We were both touched by the audience's unprompted appreciation of someone we knew so well. When Glyn was not publicly working, he liked planning holidays and spiritual retreats, and going to places where he could relax in natural settings and be energized by different cultures and ways of being at peace. Included in his mediumistic and spiritual life was a fervent love of earth-centered spirituality. As well as being a renowned medium, teacher, and orator with an inclusive interfaith approach to his work, he can also be looked upon as a nature mystic because of the experiences he often had when he was deeply aware of the natural world's sentient life and reconnected with Gaia's awesome creativity and beauty. Even when meeting people's pets, he would show great fondness of their presence and personality, and was always joyous in his interactions with them. He always made me smile when he greeted and enthusiastically talked to animal friends. Because of his understanding of the natural world, he never denied the importance of physical life, but affirmed its spiritual essence, and saw how the spirit world was profoundly interwoven with the creativity of all. He taught and wrote about various interrelated spheres of mediumistic phenomena and spirituality, which he wove around an array of insights from a coat of many colors. At times he found it restrictive working within the framework of the spiritualist movement, as he often felt the need to go beyond labels and boundaries, which is another noticeable theme running through his teachings. He was refreshingly progressive and always enthusiastically embracing new and helpful insights people had had, and broadening his understanding and wisdom. Some of the things he taught in the early 90s is different to what he taught 20 years later, which is to be expected when someone is authentically open to ongoing creative development. He was particularly drawn and had experiences connected to yogic, Buddhist, and Christian mystical teachings and practices, and enjoyed engaging in mutually beneficial dialogues with people from diverse fields of spirituality and finding common ground. His open-minded inclusiveness and search for an interspiritual perennial wisdom, in fact, profoundly enriched both his mediumistic and spiritual life, and gave them deeper meaning and purpose. He was generally down-to-earth and practical in his life and work, and helped others whenever he could. Yet when it came to publicly demonstrating his mediumistic abilities, he usually broke the rule of staying on the podium, and often walked up to people in the congregation to deliver a message from spirit. Sometimes he would turn to people in the audience who had lost direction in their life or were at crossroads, informing them that he had to speak to them, and that it was not about evidence of survival after death, as that was not what they needed at that time, but guidance about what was going on at the moment. There were numerous occasions like this when Glyn stepped outside of traditional expectations of mediumistic work, which readers will notice in some of his teachings and this book's tributes to him. Like a lot of public figures and gay men, he often dressed well and paid attention to his appearance. He spent much of his public life promoting an engaged spirituality, relevant for our times, and encouraged others to be as wide, accepting and universal in their search for spiritual truths and growth as he had been. He was aware that we live in multicultural societies, with neighbors from various faiths and disparate forms of sexual orientation, and need to look upon everyone as a part of our global spiritual community, as our sisters and brothers, which includes the animal queendoms and kingdoms. Like all of us, he was not perfect, and spoke openly about his own personal struggles. A friend commented just after Glyn's passing how brave he was, not only for blazing a trail for what he believed in and aimed to live out and embody in his life, but also for how he handled physical adversity. He had had hearing problems since he was a child, which he never allowed to get in the way of achieving what he sought to accomplish. A mystery illness he contracted in 2003 was at first devastating for him. Initially, it took lots of support from close friends, medical staff, and his family for him to pick himself up and heal. But once he did, he quickly started to work again and seemed to find richer levels to his mediumship, spirituality, and teaching. Even more remarkable was the dignity and valor he displayed in handling the onset of cancer in the last year of his earth life. Right up to the very last week, his sense of humor and his enthusiasm for working with students and the spirit were as much in evidence as they had ever been. He most certainly walked his talk in so many different and amazing ways. I can only hope that readers will come to appreciate and be inspired by his incredible work and life in the following pages.